Good afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and now that football is officially over, and I say to it as I do every year, good riddance, it is now officially baseball season. Yes, baseball, spring training, pitchers and catchers is just 8 days away. Talking about it today on the show, and I'm also going to go into the Mets outfield alignment as spring training creeps closer and closer. A week ago, I was bundled up with a scarf and gloves and a hat and a really heavy jacket, and today I barely even need a jacket. So it's 50 degrees right now, over 50 degrees, I should say, and just beautiful for an early February day. Unseasonably warm, but unseasonable changes its definition very often these days. Last night was the Super Bowl, as I mentioned, and for those of you who constantly complain that baseball is so boring, I give you last night's Super Bowl. One of the most unexciting games I've ever watched. As boring as they come. There weren't even any penalties. It was just an utter snooze fest, and I've said this a billion times over. I'll never understand how someone can enjoy football but not watch baseball. I'll never understand it, and I guess baseball is just not as action packed as football is. Whatever, I must be too smart for football. But I'm not a fan of the sport, and I'm glad it's over, because every year during the Super Bowl, I could care less about football. I really could care less about it. And every year during the Super Bowl, I have the same thought: how many more days till pitchers and catchers report? And it's sort of like closing the book on the garbage sport. The sport that comes before baseball, and it opens the book on the baseball season. Last week I did a little bit of a sort of a logjam episode of talking about the Mets infield, and logjam is the appropriate word because it is a logjam in the Mets infield. It's just a glut of players, a lot of guys that are really quality players, a lot of intriguing younger guys, and looking at the Mets outfield situation, it's not quite the same. There are really only two key cogs that are going to be guaranteed outfielders for the season, and that would be Michael Conforto and Brandon Nimmo. Those are the two guys who will more than likely be manning both corner spots, left and right, respectively, in the outfield. That leaves center field open, and at this point it's looking like Juan Lagares and Keon Broxton on paper are going to split time in center field. The issue with all of that, and that's sort of like the standard alignment sort of discussion about how the outfield will look. The issue with all of that is the injection of Jeff McNeil / outfielder. As we've heard over the last few weeks, Brodie Van Wagenen has been very clear about the fact that the Mets are viewing Jeff McNeil as an everyday outfielder. Now, he's going to more than likely be a corner outfielder, so he will be in left field probably, which means Conforto will either be playing right field every day and Nimmo in center, or switch those two around. Then what you end up with is a deeper bench with Lagares and Broxton both available as later inning defensive replacements to shift Conforto or Nimmo away from center field and over to their appropriate corner spot, and bring in a glove first center fielder to close out the game where defense is more important. I like that idea an awful lot. I am hesitant to crown McNeil an outfielder yet, because we haven't seen him make a single play in the outfield. But if you look back at historically at how the Mets have fared with infielders playing the outfield, the two guys that everyone keeps citing and bringing up are Lucas Duda and Daniel Murphy. And no one will argue that neither Duda nor Murphy excelled in the outfield. They looked like a fish out of water out there. I think McNeil has a better chance to succeed, if only because he's more athletic than both Murph and Duda ever were. I think in both cases, you could have argued that both Duda and Murph would have been better suited to play first base. And, I mean, Duda obviously was a first baseman, but Murph always, to me, profiled as a first baseman who just didn't hit for power. I thought his glove played best at first base. And at third base, too, frankly, versus second. But regardless, this is not a discussion about Daniel Murphy. I'm simply saying that for those of you who point to the failures that Murph and Duda had in the outfield and trying to adapt to that role, let's let things play out and see how Jeff McNeil adapts, because every player is different. And as I said, I think McNeil has a far different body type and is far more athletic than both Murph and Duda were at the times that both of those guys were asked to play the outfield. So the outfield is, while it's not as congested as the infield for the Mets, I kind of like this outfield. I really do. It's a young, athletic outfield, and now, of course, this is not factoring in when and if Yoenis Cespedes returns from the disabled list. If that happens in August or September or whenever it is, it will mean that Cespedes is healthy, and it will mean that Cespedes will be getting regular at-bats in left field. If that is the case, then of the 3 to 5 guys who are maintaining outfield roles up to that point, 1 or perhaps even 2 of them will be taking the backseat to Cespedes when he's able to come off the DL. That's the nature of the game that's being played. And when a guy's making almost $30 million, whether insurance is paying for 75% of it or 50% of it or whatever, that player is going to play when he's physically able to play, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. So Cespedes is going to be a little bit of a monkey wrench into the works, of course, assuming that the works work and run smoothly to that point. But again, I think it's on paper an athletic group of younger talent playing the outfield, an expansive outfield in Citi Field, with 2 elite center field defenders in Broxton and Lagares, both of whom can, of course, play corner spots as needed. So, again, looking at a depth situation, I think the Mets have done very well to address their lack of depth over the last few years. And it's so funny that I'm saying this now, because I distinctly remember last year talking about how deep the Mets were, how their roster was much deeper than it's ever been. And I'm saying it again, and I'm saying it now, but I'm saying it with a lot more conviction, because it really is a much deeper roster. You've got 2 guys at the minor leagues with minor league invites, Rajai Davis, who can also fill in the case of an injury, and what's his face from the Giants, Gregor Blanco. I think it was Gregor Blanco. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He may not even break camp at all, and he may opt out or whatever. He's minor league invite, whatever. Doesn't matter. But they have 2 veteran-type guys, in Davis and I think Blanco, who might be able to provide additional depth for, a Nimmo or a Conforto to spend some time on the disabled list. Or if there's an injury to an infielder and McNeil has to play that position every day, there's a chance to call up one of those guys to spot for 7 days, 10 days, whatever the injury time might be. So there are again a lot more options, even though not as many in the outfield. A lot more options in the outfield with guys that can sort of drag and drop across multiple positions out there, and maybe not be absolutely fantastic in those positions, but certainly not embarrass themselves in those positions. The only exception to that might be McNeil playing center field, but again, we've never seen McNeil in the outfield, so it's hard to judge. So that's going to do it for today. That's my outfield recap. Nothing earth-shattering here, and at this moment, there remains nothing earth-shattering going on in free agent market, and with just 8 days till pitchers and catchers report, the fact that Manny Machado and Bryce Harper are still free agents is nuts to me. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to be out of town the next 2 days and possibly the next 3, so I won't be back until Thursday at the earliest. at which point I will start talking about the bullpen and or the starting rotation, depending on how much time we have. We might even get to Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if we'll have enough time. But until that time, thanks for watching today. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter if you're not already doing so at Mr_Met. That's MISTER_MET. And as always, let's go Mets.